This horse story is entitled A Sneaky Horse. I love to work with my horses and do little things that build relationships between us. And one day I was working with a horse that I've always had kind of a rocky relationship with. He'd had a rough go with his previous masters who'd been a little hard on him, and he's never really accepted guys. So he's not super thrilled with the fact that I'm a guy. And so I go over, and he's half Welsh and half quarter horse. He's pretty good size for a pony, very well built, very fast, but also very stubborn. And he's standing over by himself. All the other horses are off at the other end of the pasture. And I look at him and I whisper, "Barney." He looks at me like, "What?" It's like, "Barney, do you want some grain?" And they know that, "Do you want some grain?" They know that means they're about to get grained. And he looks at me and his ears come up. And he looks back at the other horses like, do they see that he's going to grain me? I said, "Shh, quiet, quiet, don't let him know." And I kid you not, this horse puts his head down and sneaks behind the tall grass, which was as tall as he was at that point, definitely needed to be dropped for hay, sneaks around the side of the pasture so that they don't see him. I go over to the feed bunk and I open it up and I pull out the grain and I come back over to him and I'm gently pouring it, and he's nickering at me softly going, "Hey, hey, pleasure," nodding his head at me. That yes, oh yes, dump it, dump it, dump it. But he's looking back to see if the other horses hear me softly pouring the grain into the big rubberized plastic feeder. It was hilarious, and I've had that almost same experience with nearly all my horses, most of which by blood are not related. But they are familiar with the concept of sneaking, and they are familiar with the concept of being greedy and wanting it all to themselves. And it's one of those things that many times I'll stand there with that one horse and love on him and rub on him, because I want them to remember that my contact, whether I was petting them only, or I saddled them and took them for a ride, or I just grained them and then left them, or let them out in the yard to eat, whatever it was that contact was pleasurable. So that at the end of a ride, it always finished on a high note, whether I got off the horse and loosened the saddle and rubbed on him and walked him back into the barnyard or whatever. But that experience with Barney was pretty funny, and I've repeated it many times with my horses, where that one horse is off by itself, and they know that if they're quiet, the other horses won't hear, and they'll get that little scoop of grain just to themselves. And usually it's not a big treat. I often find that the smaller the treat, the more memorable it is to the horse, which seems like it wouldn't make much sense, but it definitely seems to be the way it is. So I hope you've enjoyed that story. Have yourself a great day.